Our interview with President Macron came just 1 week after the U.S., France, and Britain launched a coordinated strike on the Assad regime in Syria. But on the eve of the state visit, there are still big issues that divide Presidents Macron and Trump. I came to the Elysee Palace to talk with the French leader. Built in 1722 for a French nobleman, it was first used by the President of France in 1848. And the interview took place in the Salon Doré, the Golden Room, the French equivalent of the Oval Office. Mr. President, thank you for speaking with us.
Thank you very much for being here in my office. You're welcome.
Let's start with the state visit and your address to Congress. What message will you bring about relations between our two nations, and what role the world would like to see the U.S. play?
Look, first of all, I'm very honored to come to your country at the invitation of President Trump and have the opportunity to discuss with him and go indeed to the Congress for this address. My objective is to highlight a long-term history between our two countries based on values. We are very much attached to the same values, and especially liberty and peace. And I think the US today has a very strong role to play for peace in different regions of the world, and especially Middle East. And I think is one of the last resort player for this peace and for multilateralism. So I will advocate for multilateralism in front of the Congress for that, which means playing all together in order to reduce the influence and the power of some rogue states and very tough dictators, and obviously fight against terrorism together.
Many foreign leaders over the last year have come to Washington, but this will be the first state visit of the Trump presidency. How do you explain your special relationship with the president? And some have called you the Trump whisperer.
Look, I think we have a very special relationship because both of us are probably the maverick of the systems on both sides. I think President Trump's election was unexpected in your country, and probably my election was unexpected in my country. And we are not part of the classical political system. Second, I think we are very much in line on some very critical issue of this world, and especially counter-terrorism and fight against ISIS. Third, I think we have a very strong personal relation based on the different meetings we had, and especially the visits that your president gave to my country for Bastille Day in 2017.
I want to go back to your first meeting and the famous first handshake between the two of you at the NATO summit in May of last year. It lasted 6 agonizing seconds, and you said afterwards it was not an innocent moment, that it was a moment of truth. How important do you think it was to establish that you were not going to be pushed around?
Look, I think it was a very direct and, yes, a very direct and lucid moment. When I say it's not innocent, it's to say we were sitting together and we had this shake hand, and it was to say now we will work together.
But you also made it clear that you weren't going to let him...
Normally he's a specialist, basically, to take you with. So I was very, I mean, seeing Prime Minister Abe and some of the different victims, I resisted. But in fact, I mean, it was a very natural moment, I have to say, and a very friendly moment. Don't worry.
As you know, the special counsel is investigating President Trump. This week, the former FBI Director James Comey said that he was morally unfit to be president. Does this hurt President Trump's credibility and his effectiveness on the world stage?
I don't think so, and to me, there is no impact. I mean, people of the United States voted for President Trump and elected him. You have your system. You are a free country with a rule of law, which is, I mean, very great. I have the same in my country. This is an actual democracy with judges, with media, and with all the controversies. But here in this office, I'm not the one to judge and in a certain way to explain to your people what should be your president, or to consider that because of these controversies or because of these investigations, your president is less credible for me, for my people, and for the rest of the world. I mean, I'm here to deal with the President of the United States, and the people of the United States elected Donald Trump.
Do you ever wonder whether he will serve his full term?
I never wonder that. I mean, I work with him because I work with him because both of us are very much at the service of our countries on both sides. And for me, that's why, even when we have some disagreements on climate and on some issues, I think the most important thing is to, just to remind that we are at the service of our people. That's our legitimacy. And this service is to work for this very long-term history for freedom, for defense of our values. And that's, Lafayette came when you decided to be a free country. He came for France. He helped the United States to exist. During the First World War, during the Second World War, when we were attacked, when our liberty was attacked, thousands of young people came here and died here for my country. That's it. That's the story of our relationship. And President Trump and myself are, whatever happens, in the line of this history. That's why my gift to your president will be an oak taken in a very symbolic place, especially for your Marines in north of France, that together, we will put in his garden, because that's for me a great symbol of this long-term relationships.
You talk about the United States as a country of last resort. Your relationship with President Trump was a bit strained this week after the attack on Syria. Mr. Trump has made it clear that he wants to pull out.
We'll be coming out of Syria very soon. Let the other people take care of it now.
After the missile strike, you said, we convinced him it was necessary to stay for the long term. The White House pushed back. He wants U.S. forces to come home as quickly as possible. So, Mr. President, which is it? Is President Trump going to pull out of Syria as soon as ISIS is defeated, or have you persuaded him to stay to help stabilize the situation there?
It's not automatically U.S. forces, but that's U.S. diplomacy, and that's your president. We will have to build the new Syria afterwards. And that's why I think the U.S. role is very important to play. Why? I will be very blunt. The day we will have finished this war against ISIS, if we leave, definitely and totally, even from a political point of view, we will leave the floor to the Iranian regime, Bashar al-Assad and these guys. And they will prepare the new war. They will fuel the new terrorists. So my point is to say, even after the end of the war against ISIS, the US, France, our allies, all the countries of the region, even Russia and Turkey, will have a very important role to play in order to create this new Syria and ensure Syrian people to decide for the future.
Let's do what we call a lightning round. Quick questions, quick answers. When the President announced new tariffs on aluminum and steel for the European Union, you said that we will not negotiate with a gun pointed at our head.
Yeah.
There is now a May 1st deadline. Who is going to blink, the President Trump or you?
I hope he will. He will not implement these new tariffs, and he will decide to for an exemption for the European Union. You don't make trade war with your lie.
But he has said that he is going to implement.
He said exemption till May 1st. Let's see what he will decide on May 1st. I just say, where are your priorities? You cannot make a trade war with your lie. I'm an easy guy. I'm very simple. I'm straightforward. It's too complicated. If you make war against everybody, you make trade war against China, trade war against Europe, war in Syria, war against Iran. Come on, it doesn't work. You need a lie. We are the ally.
Iran. The president has a May 12th deadline for deciding whether or not to continue to lift the sanctions on Tehran. Would it be a mistake for the president to pull out of the Iran nuclear deal?
Is this agreement perfect, and this JCPOA a perfect thing for our relationship with Iran? No. But for nuclear, what do you have as a better option? I don't see it. What is the what-if scenario, or your plan B? I don't have any plan B for nuclear against Iran. So that's a question we will discuss. But that's why I just want to say, on nuclear, let's preserve this framework, because it's better than a sort of North Korean type of situation. Second, I'm not satisfied with the situation with Iran. I want to fight against ballistic missiles. I want to contain their influence in the region. So my point is to say, don't leave now the JCPOA as long as you have not a better option for nuclear, and let's complete it with ballistic missile and a regional containment.
President Trump appears close to holding a summit meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-Un. Do you think that his threats, fire and fury, his insults, little rocket man, however unconventional they may be, brought Kim to the table?
Look, I don't know. I'm not an expert about, I would say, the rationality of North Korean president. And I think we always have to be very careful about this kind of declarations. But I think the pressure he put in this region, plus the Chinese role in this region, because President Trump worked very closely with President Xi, was useful. But now we will have to deliver.
During President Putin's visit here to France, you called him out on Russian interference in your election. What do you think of Vladimir Putin?
I think he's a very strong man. He's a strong president. He wants a great Russia. People are proud with his policy. He is extremely tough with minorities and his opponents, with an idea of democracy which is not mine. But I have a permanent discussion with him, even if we are disaligned on a lot of things. He is strong and smart, but don't be naive. He is obsessed by interferences in our democracies. That's why I do believe that we should never be weak with President Putin. When you are weak, he uses it, and it's fine. That's a game. But he made a lot of fake news. He has a very strong propaganda, and he intervenes everywhere around Europe and the US to fragilize our democracies, because he thinks it's good for this country. I respect him. I know him. I'm lucid. I want to work with him, knowing everything about that.
A welcoming ceremony for the President of Senegal at the Elysee Palace, home to the leaders of France since the 19th century. And we're back now with more of our exclusive interview with French President Macron ahead of his state visit to Washington this week. President Trump likes to call himself a disruptor, determined to transform the American economy. But when it comes to shaking things up, he has nothing on his French counterpart. Let's talk about your political movement, En Marche, on the Move. How would you describe your reform agenda to Americans?
So my reform agenda is to modernize the country. We fixed labor law. We fixed corporate taxes. We are modernizing the different sectors, railway and so on. And we will pursue this modernization agenda till the end. And at the same time, we will launch with Germany a very strong approach in order to modernize as well the EU, the European Union and Eurozone agenda. That's my top priority, because I want this country to be both much stronger and totally adapted to the new challenges like digital and green economy.
When you came into office, the unemployment rate was 9.5%. It's now 8.9%. Growth is at 2%, which is the fastest rate in 10 years. But your critics say you are the president of the rich. How do you plead?
When you have 10% unemployment, are the rich the victim? I'm not so sure. The more you decrease unemployment, the more you serve poor people because you provide a job. So my policy is focused on job creation, helping business people and entrepreneurs in order to accelerate the job creation. My agenda is an emancipation agenda, I would say. I want people coming from poor neighborhood, from middle classes, to succeed through education and work in my country. When you have a country with a lot of public expenditure, with a high unemployment, your victims are poor people and people coming from poor neighborhoods.
One of your main targets has been the national railway system. Jobs for life, guaranteed benefits for life, train engineers can retire at 52, but in your reform you don't want to end that for the people who currently have it, only for future workers. I must tell you, and you probably wouldn't hear this much in France, there are some American conservatives who say, why not go further?
Look, I'm not running the US. They should leave me the floor to run France. Because I know the situation, I know what is fair and unfair and what can be delivered and cannot be delivered. Why? Because I think the system is fine if for the current workers we preserve, the situation. But given the fact that we will have to take a lot of new workers, we want to clarify the situation and hire them as a normal company. You can always say you should do more when you are not the one in charge of it. I'm in charge, believe me, I take some commitments, I deliver. But I deliver to take fair and efficient decisions, not to take unfair or inefficient decisions.
You talk about fairness. Let's talk about your tax reforms. You have dramatically cut the stiff tax on wealth, but you are taxing retirees more heavily. How is that fair?
Look, first, indeed, I cut a wealth tax, which was a strong handicap for the French economy. Why? Because when people succeeded with their company and so on, especially entrepreneurs, they had to leave the country if they wanted to escape. So we lost a lot of opportunities. When they reinvest in the economy, when they create jobs, when they decide to reinvest in different listed or non-listed corporates, I don't want them to pay a wealth tax because they are good for the economy. So I think this reform is both efficient and fair. As for the retired people, I ask them a small effort. But why is it fair? Because in France, workers pay for retirement for retired people. That's a solidarity between generations. If I don't manage to push my country to have better results, more workers and more purchasing power for my workers, I will jeopardize my capacity to pay retirements for retired people. So that's fair. That's a fair deal. And I told my retired people, first, thank you. I told you during the campaign I will do it. It's not a surprise. I don't betray you. And third, in a certain way, it is fair. Because when you look at the average in the society, retired people are slightly richer than middle class working people. And when you look at the situation between the different categories, 30 to 40 years ago, people get retired at the same age as today, but living 15, 20 years less than today. So the situation totally changed. I ask these efforts. I know it's difficult. You have always protests when you change something in the country, but I do endorse these efforts because I think it's fair and it's, once again, fair in general between the different generations and efficient in order to increase my results.
One result of all this is that you have had major protests. You have had these 2-day-a-week strikes. One demonstration, 200,000 people took to the street. Any chance that you will back down?
No chance. The classical way to proceed in France was to say, we have an issue. We will put new public money in order to solve this issue, which is not the right way to fix the situation. What I told French citizen before election is that I want to address the deep roots of our problems. It will take time sometimes. We will have to take bold decisions, but we have to fix the situation in depth. So we will deliver. And I have no other choice, because if I stop here, because some protests, and they are legitimate, but they are a minority part of the country. If I stop, how do you think I will be able to modernize the country and make this U-turn? It's finished. So I will deliver, because that's my duty and that's my commitment.
But your poll numbers are down. You were elected with 66% of the vote. In the latest poll, 58% disapprove of you, only 40% approve.
You know, polls are not the one to tell where you have to go when you are elected. If you follow the polls, you never reform. You never fix a situation. You never transform. Because you're always obsessed by following where people want to go. I was elected on a very clear basis and a very clear mandate. I will deliver the mandate. And I will look at the polls in due time, not now.
You talk about what it takes to be a leader. You embrace symbols. On your election victory night, they played the Ode to Joy at the Louvre. The first time you addressed the French Parliament, it was at Versailles. And you have even said that France, to some degree, is still a monarchy. Is that how you see your role as a leader?
I don't want to be a monarch. I'm president of the French Republic. I'm elected and I'm under the control of my people, which is very important to me, because this is the only way to have a strong stimulus to work and to do your best. I mean, it puts a lot of responsibility on your own. So each day you have to think about that, and this sort of symbolical burden you have because of this history and because of this place of the country. I do endorse it.
Some in the French press compare you to Napoleon. Some have compared you to Louis XIV, your predecessor in this office, and your former political patron, Francois Hollande, has warned you to remember that the French also cut off the head of the king. Do you ever feel you need to guard against being arrogant?
Definitely. But having authority, deciding, being aware of all the consequences of your decision, and thinking that you have to stick to your decision to deliver when it's good for the country, is not the same as being authoritarian or arrogant. So I try to preserve myself. I mean, all of us have a lot of defaults and weaknesses. But I think the situation of my country is the best remedy of being arrogant. You are not allowed to do so. I'm here to serve my people and my country and make it great again, as somebody I know very well could say. But that's it. That's the whole story. And making great again means delivering good results, having more unity for the country, and being fair with the people. So all this criticism you mentioned are just here to say, now somebody decides and endorses. You have a parliamentary control, you have election, you have a democratic system. We are one of the greatest democracies in this world. But here, in this current situation, because of all the challenges in France, in Europe, in our world, I have to take these responsibilities. And I have to decide to endorse and to remain every day both lucid and committed. And I am.
Mr. President, thank you.
Thank
you
you
for talking to us, and safe travels to Washington.
Thanks very much. Thanks to your people, and I will be very honored to come and visit your country and speak with your leaders. Thank you.
Thank you.